Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm back again. This is actually an old story, as in from November, not from this month, because you know how things travel so quickly in cybersecurity. That I wanted to cover because I thought it was very interesting, and I think it kind of didn't get a lot of press. So I've heard about it on the Security Now podcast, which is well worth listening to if you like security type things. But sorry, let me get a little bit closer to the mic. Sorry if I mess up the audio here. But so basically, what happened here was Microsoft, they have a number of honeypots that are out in the wild. And those honeypots, they obviously collect a lot of data from people trying to brute force them or hack them in some one way or another. And they released a report on what passwords were tried on accounts on those honeypots. Now, I actually couldn't find the original article. I found one that was written by someone who worked at Microsoft at the time. I think they still do, but it was for some reason I couldn't find the report from this guy, Ross, who was the person who apparently did all the work. I couldn't find the original report. But anyway, the information I'm seeing here does match the information I heard on Security Now and that I've seen in other places. So I'm assuming either we all have the same lie or the information is the same. So my goal here is just to make you aware of this and then maybe talk about how to generate better passwords in the end there. So all you need to care about is that Microsoft has these honeypots out in the wild, and they are constantly being hit over SSH and RDP, and well, those are the two main protocols, but any other protocol you can log in via, FTP probably as well. And what they're reporting here are the passwords that have been used. Now, of course, they're not reporting the passwords themselves because with 25 million or whatever honeypots, it would be insane to report that information. It wouldn't make any sense. So what they have here is the highlights, which is what we care about. So the highlights that we care about are, thankfully, the person who did write this article kind of put them all into a neat little bullet paragraph for us there. Let's start with the first one. 77% of the passwords were between 1 and 7 characters long. One of the things they want to stress is that these metrics you see here are what the people who are brute forcing these honeypots are trying. And why that matters is they're trying them because they work. So that's why we care, right? Like, so if you look at this and you go, well, my password is 64 characters. Okay, great, that's fine. But most people's are not. If the metric we get here is 77% of the passwords that were tried were between 1 and 7 characters. So if your password is between 1 and 7 characters, we would highly recommend, we being, I guess, just me, extending that. And you know what's funny is that a lot of times these brute force attempts, they're based on password lists. And I'm not recommending you do this because it's a terrible security practice. It's awful. Please don't do it. But a lot of times if you just double that password, as in type it twice and make that your new password, it becomes really difficult. Most brute forcers don't try that logic because it's so uncommon. So I'm not saying it's what you should do, but if you're having a hard time remembering a long password, we'll talk about more solutions later, but that's one. 6% of the passwords were longer than 10 characters. Now, that's a big problem because what that tells you is there is a gap in between 7 and 10 where people think they're really smart. That's a problem. 39% of the passwords contained at least one number. That number is good, but that's bad as well. 39%, let's just make it 60-40. 40% is pretty good, but the fact that 60% of people who are being targeted by these attacks have not thought about putting a number in their password, that's a big deal. That's a very basic. A lot of places like SSH and RDP won't do it, or FTP, but a lot of places like your bank will make you do that, right? But this is what the hackers are trying, so they're not, that's not what they're seeing. And then the final one I actually thought was the most interesting, which is there were no spaces in the attempted passwords. Now, why is that interesting? It's interesting because you can put spaces in passwords on a lot of applications as well as SSH and FTP and RDP. You can also probably do it for your bank. I would recommend you try it. That's actually a good hint right there. To be honest, if you wanted to make a really good password that would not be brute forced, you could just make it your password right now and put a couple spaces in it and game over. Anyway, so bringing all this up again to say, oh, I'm sorry, here's the number right here. I didn't even see. This is based on 25 million brute force attacks. And so those 25 million are, of course, they were in the Microsoft honeypot ecosystem, but you can imagine how many of those were done outside of the Microsoft honeypot ecosystem. And again, they're only brute forcing with word lists that they have found to work in the past or that are working currently, which is why this information does make a difference. So if we talk a little bit about, I don't want to make this video too long, sorry, so I'm going to go ahead and try to cut it short here, because I think that information should be enough to give you an idea of why you should care, especially if you have a server stood up out there in like the real world. But as far as password managing goes, password managers are the best at it. Highly recommend using one. I use one myself. I use KeePassX. Bitwarden is one that's highly recommended. I don't use it, but people I trust use it. But if you don't have any system for using a password, if you don't have any system for maintaining different passwords, at the very least, be aware of what is dumb. And I don't mean that to be rude. A lot of people, I've had this conversation with my own mother, if you're going to put sensitive information on the internet, the capital I internet, then you need to protect it to the best of your ability. And the best of your ability may be to trust that information with someone else, which is fine. That's why password managers exist. You get them to generate a password for you. But if for some reason you can't do that, then you're kind of stuck with, I have to make my own password. And at the very least, be aware that you can make that password. So let's move this out of the way here. So there's a number of things you can do here. So like one, a great idea for a password is to use leet speak. And the reason for that is because you have to use numbers and special characters. So if I wanted to say like, this is it as a password, let's echo that. I could echo this with 1 being I and 5 being S is it. And that already helps you evade brute force password lists, but it's not perfect because this is kind of short. And also we don't have a lot of different special characters in it, but that is something. If you wanted to do something like lyrics, like let's think of some good lyrics on the fly. Like let's say "We Are the Archers," which is a lyric from the song "We Are the Archers." Let's say you do okay, well that right there, that's pretty hard to brute force anyway. First of all, because it has spaces, as we saw before, that's not common in a password list. In fact, the 25 million brute force attacks Microsoft saw, there were no spaces, but also it has a special character, which is the comma. It's very long, and it's easy to remember because of the way that we've kind of constructed it. Ultimately, though, these are all like the ones I've listed, these past two. They are okay ideas, but they're problematic still because they're tied to your personality in some way. So if you know I like the song "We Are the Archers" with the lyric "We Are the Archers," that narrows down kind of the scope of your attack significantly. Again, the odds of this being brute forced are next to none, but the odds of it being guessed are pretty high. So how we deal with that normally is we can use like the actual dev u random from bash. That's not recommended to be used because it's not truly random, it's just pseudo random. But basically something like a KeePassX or Bitwarden generator is using something like that. So a truly good password that would be super hard to brute force and that we would not find anywhere else would look something like this. TR stands for text replace. TAC-D is delete. C is the complement. So we want to delete the complement of, and then we type what we want to delete the complement of. We want to delete the complement of, let's say, A to Z. So, well, that won't work. A to Z, we want to pump into that dev u random. Okay, So what you see here is a bunch of the characters from A to Z. We can expand that library by doing capital A to capital Z. And now you see we have capitals. And we can expand it further by doing 0 to 9. Let's see if we can find, yeah, we see some numbers in there. And we can expand it further by having, of course, just special characters. You might have to escape them with a backslash like that. But there you go. You see special characters in there. You can make whichever ones you want. I think I might have to back escape these as well, actually. I don't remember. Yeah, okay. I did have to back escape that. Or if I didn't notice it before. But either way, if you were to do this and you pipe in dev_random, you then are able to pipe that into, let's move it up, pipe that into head taxi 16 or 64, and either of these will generate for you a truly random password. This is unique to you in the sense that everyone else who runs this command will not see this behavior. This is completely separate from what you will see or anyone else will see. And if you're on a bank website where they go, oh, you can't have brackets, well, just delete those then. And then you get something else. And if they go, oh, you can't have question marks or slashes, then adjust accordingly. You know, you can make this work. And of course, the tax C here is, let's just go ahead and look it up. The tax C is bytes, as you can see there. And so whatever number of bytes you want it to be, whatever your bank or whatever will take. I've come across a lot of websites. I don't know the reason why, but I've come across a lot of sites recently that are only doing 32 character maximum for their passwords. My bank does that too, which I find very strange. I've written them about it because it's so bizarre. But anyway, I'm not saying to do this. I think you should use a password manager. I have interacted with so many people who use Linux who do not use a password manager. I thought I should bring up this article and I should show how to do this little TR trick, because this isn't perfectly safe. Like I've said, everyone recommends not using it because it's not truly random. But frankly, it's better than using summer 2021 or some kind of, quote, memorable, unquote, password for the reasons you can imagine, which is these are not going to be on word lists. They're going to be impossible to brute force in your lifetime, etc. So that's it for this one. I hope everyone enjoyed. Let me know if you did in the comments. I am open to criticism. Thanks.